They told her she was nothing. A maid, just a servant in a mansion dripping with gold. The billionaires laughed in her face when she asked for a fair chance. One of them even mocked her, smirking, "Translate this and my salary is yours." He thought it was a joke. But when she did it, when she proved them wrong, his jaw dropped so hard the room froze. What happened next shocked every single person in that room, and it will shock you too. If you love unbelievable true to life twists where the underdog rises, hit that subscribe button right now. Because this is not just a story. It's a lesson in courage, betrayal, and one moment that changes everything. The mansion rose like a gleaming monument on the hill, all glass windows and marble columns that caught the afternoon sun like a mirror of arrogance, and at its gates stood Alara, a young woman whose clothes marked her as invisible to everyone who passed. She had been working in the billionaire Carter family's estate for nearly 2 years now, scrubbing floors, polishing chandeliers, and carrying trays of crystal glasses that clinked like mocking bells against her calloused hands. Every day, the world reminded her she did not belong. But what the Carters didn't know was that Alara had a gift. She had grown up surrounded by books, not riches, raised by a grandmother who believed languages opened doors richer than gold. And so by the time Alara was 18, she could speak, read, and translate more than 10 of them, though no one in this mansion ever thought to ask. They only saw the maid. They only saw the dust on her apron, not the fire in her mind. That afternoon, she found herself in the grand hall, holding a tray of champagne for a party where billionaires and magnates from London, New York, and Dubai gathered, their laughter like thunder rolling over her silence. They spoke about stocks, oil deals, mergers worth billions, and as Alara passed, their words floated into her memory like feathers she could weave into meaning. But when one guest, a sleek man with a diamond watch, waved her closer, it wasn't to thank her. It was to humiliate her. "Translate this and my salary is yours," he said with a smirk, pulling out a napkin on which he scribbled an ancient phrase in Greek, a language few in the room could even recognize. The laughter that followed was cruel and loud, the sound of people certain of their superiority. Alara froze, not because she didn't understand, but because she knew exactly what the phrase meant. Her grandmother had whispered those same words when times were hardest, when food was scarce, and the only inheritance Alara had was wisdom. The man leaned back, smirking as if he had handed her a noose. But Alara straightened her back, looked him in the eyes, and spoke in a calm, steady voice that carried across the marble room. The translation rolled off her tongue, every word precise, powerful, and undeniably correct. For a heartbeat silence. Then the billionaire's jaw dropped, his arrogance shattered in front of everyone. The laughter died instantly, replaced by murmurs and shocked stares. Alara did not gloat. She simply placed the tray back on the polished oak table and bowed slightly, just as her training as a maid demanded. But inside, she felt a spark ignite, a spark that would burn through the chains of invisibility they had forced on her. That spark, however, did not just threaten the pride of one man. It threatened to unravel secrets that the entire Carter family had buried, secrets that would not stay buried now that the maid had been seen. The days after that night blurred into a storm of tasks Alara had never imagined for herself. Instead of polishing silver or dusting chandeliers, she now sat at Dominic Carter's side in his study, translating documents thick with jargon and secrecy. At first, it felt surreal, as though she had stepped into a world she had only overheard through cracked doors. Her fingers traced the foreign characters on contracts written in Mandarin, Arabic, Russian, languages she knew intimately, but had never dared to use in front of the rich and powerful. Dominic dictated instructions with the precision of a general, and Alara followed, careful never to reveal more than necessary. She quickly realized these weren't harmless business papers. They were blueprints of power, schemes of acquisitions, shadow partnerships, and agreements that danced on the thin line between legal and catastrophic. By the third day, Dominic dismissed the lawyers and assistants who normally hovered in his study. "She's faster," he said simply, as if explaining a fact of nature. That declaration sent a ripple through the house. Servants whispered louder now, their tones sharper, more resentful. Some envied her sudden rise, others feared it would bring ruin. Alara felt their stares burning into her back whenever she entered the kitchen or servant halls. It was as if her mere existence threatened their fragile order. She told herself she didn't care, but in truth, she was scared. One evening, while translating a set of coded correspondence in Italian, Alara stumbled on a phrase that made her blood run cold. It wasn't business. It was a warning. "The walls will fall if the girl speaks." She reread it 3 times, her pulse racing. Was it a coincidence? Did it even refer to her? She tried to keep her face calm, but Dominic's eyes were sharp. Something wrong? He asked, his voice smooth but dangerous. She swallowed hard. No, sir. Just a strange turn of phrase. He studied her, then leaned back. You're learning, Elara. Remember this in my world, words are weapons. Every letter matters. That night, she lay awake, the phrase echoing in her mind. Who wrote it? Who was watching her? And what did they mean? The walls would fall. Her answer came sooner than she expected. 2 days later, Dominic took her with him to a meeting in the city. It was her first time leaving the estate in his company. The car was sleek, armored with tinted windows that reflected the skyline like black glass. Dominic sat beside her in silence, reading documents while she tried to calm the storm in her chest. They arrived at a skyscraper downtown, a tower of steel and ambition. Inside, the air was colder, sharper, filled with the scent of expensive cologne and fear. The boardroom was filled with men in suits. But it wasn't the suits that unsettled Elara, it was their eyes. Predatory, assessing, calculating. She realized quickly that Dominic had brought her not just to translate, but to test her. One of the men, a broad-shouldered figure with a scar across his cheek, pushed a file across the table. This arrived from Moscow. Confidential. Elara opened it, her eyes scanning the Cyrillic script. Her heart pounded again. Hidden between business terms were references to shipments, coded names, movements across borders that no legitimate business would ever confess to. She glanced at Dominic. He gave a subtle nod, urging her to read aloud. And so she did, translating smoothly, though each word felt like a stone in her mouth. When she finished, the room was silent. Then one of the men chuckled darkly. Your maid is impressive, Carter. Does she understand what she's speaking? Dominic's lips curved into a smile. She understands enough. The meeting continued, but Elara felt the weight of their eyes on her the entire time. She wasn't invisible anymore. She was exposed, standing at the center of a web she didn't even understand. On the drive back, she couldn't keep quiet. What was that about? Those weren't business contracts. That was something else. Dominic sipped from a silver flask, his gaze fixed on the road ahead. You're smart, Elara. Smarter than most people in that room. But smart doesn't mean safe. Remember that? Safe? She whispered. Am I in danger? He finally looked at her, his expression unreadable. Everyone in my world is in danger. Those words haunted her, and they became all too real when, 3 nights later, the mansion was broken into. It happened just past midnight. Elara was jolted awake by the sound of glass shattering and alarms screaming. She rushed out of her room to find the halls flooded with shadows and chaos. Security guards shouted, their footsteps thundering through the corridors. From the staircase, she saw figures dressed in black, masked, moving with terrifying precision. This wasn't a robbery. This was a message. Before she could retreat, one of the masked men spotted her. Their eyes locked, and for a heartbeat, she thought she saw recognition, like he knew exactly who she was. He raised a finger to his lips, a chilling gesture of silence, before disappearing into the chaos. By the time the intruders vanished, the mansion was scarred. Windows shattered, priceless art slashed, safes broken into. But it wasn't theft. They had taken nothing. They had left a warning. On the main dining table, carved into the wood with a knife, were the same words Elara had seen in that Italian correspondence. The walls will fall if the girl speaks. The household erupted. Security doubled. Dominic roared at his staff, demanding answers. Elara, trembling, kept silent, though she knew the message was about her. She had become the crack in the fortress, the weak link they feared, or needed, to silence. Dominic confronted her the next morning. Do you know why they targeted us? Elara shook her head, though her heart screamed the truth. No, sir. He narrowed his eyes. Lies don't suit you, girl. You will tell me if you know anything. Because if you don't, others will make you tell. That was the moment Elara realized her life was no longer her own. She was caught between two powers, Dominic, who saw her as a weapon, and whoever the intruders were, who saw her as a threat. Both sides wanted to use her, silence her, or destroy her. She thought of running, packing her few belongings and disappearing into the night. But where would she go? They would find her, one way or another. And deep down, another part of her whispered that maybe she shouldn't run. Maybe this was her chance, not just to survive, but to uncover the truth, because something told her that the phrase carved into the wood was not just a threat. It was a key. And if she could unlock it, she might find the secret that bound the Carters, the intruders, and herself together in ways she could never have imagined. And so, as the mansion repaired its broken windows and strengthened its gates, Elara began to prepare too. not with weapons or guards, but with the only power she had ever possessed: knowledge. She read through every document Dominic gave her, memorized every coded phrase, pieced together patterns that others overlooked. She moved like a shadow, playing the role of the obedient maid, while secretly becoming something else. The storm was coming. She could feel it in every whisper, every sidelong glance, every coded word she translated. And when it broke, it would change everything.